Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope you're having a fabulous day. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to create a card. We're going to be using some items from the Say It With Stamps collection by Photoplay. We're going to be using the Really Great Guy stamp set. With Father's Day around the corner, I thought this would be really nice. Stamp set to use. There is a coordinating die set. We'll be using that as well. I'm going to pair the Really Great Guy stamp set with the Say It With Stamps uni alphabet. I want to spell out the word dad, so this is a great die set for that. The letters are on the larger side. And then we're going to also use the Pebbles and Stone 6x9 stencil. I think this is going to make a great background for our card. We're going to start by taking our Pebbles and Stone stencil. I had already put pixie spray behind my stencil. We're going to bring in some an A2 panel. So this is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I'm going to lightly tack my stencil to my cardstock. After we have our stencil tacked down, I'm going to bring in my craft mat. Today we're going to create a background, and we are going to be using the Deco Foil Transfer Gel. Never used this before, so we're using it together. You use this with the Deco Foil, which is really nice. Now the nice thing about this is you don't need to use heat. You can, or you don't need to. So we're not going to use heat, but we're going to go and create a background. Now since we're making a masculine card, you're probably thinking, why is she going to put foil with a fishing stamp set? Bear with me, I think the outcome's going to turn out really nice. The foil that I'm using is opal, so it's a very pale, I'm going to take a sheet out. It is a very pale iridescent kind of a foil, and it's slightly see-through too, which I think is going to be really nice. You can see the stencil through it. So I took a sheet out here. I'm actually going to trim down a piece that will fit over my card front. And we're going to do a little foiling without a machine. Well, I take that back. You will need a die cutting machine. But I trimmed down a piece of my opal Deco Foil. Before we add our transfer gel over our stencil, I do want to add a little color to the edges of my panel. So I'm going to be using a pale gray ink. And I'm just going to add a little bit of color behind my background. I'm not concerned about the middle because that's going to be covered. I want some light spots and dark spots. And I think that is going to work out great. Now I'm going to leave my stencil on my panel. I don't want to shift it. I do want to take a towel and wipe off the excess ink off my stencil. So we'll just wipe off our stencil while it's on our cardstock. Next, we're going to open up our transfer gel, and I'm going to use a spatula here, and we're going to liberally go over our background. The transfer gel is very soft. I would say it has a consistency of a thick white glue. Very, very soft and very easy to spread. Now once I have my transfer gel over my stenciled cardstock, I'm going to remove my stencil. And then I'll use my tweezers to pick it up, my panel up. And then we're going to set this aside to dry. That looks so neat as it is. But I'm going to set this aside to dry. And then it says to dry it for an hour. For no heat transfer, you need to set this aside to dry. So I already did one earlier, so I have one ready to go. We don't have to wait that long. But you just use soap and water to wash off your stencil and your craft mat and your spatula. So that's what I'm going to do right now, and when I'm done, I will be right back. Okay, this is what it looks like. When it dried, it actually picked up some of the ink that I had along the edges, which is exactly what I was going for. But it does have a little shine to it, you can see here. And it does have dimension to it. Now what we're going to do is take our panel After it's all dry, again, you have to wait about an hour. We're going to take our foil, and I'm going to lay it right over the top. Just kind of let it fall in place. And then what it tells me to do is run it through your die cut machine. So I'm going to bring in my die cutting machine, and we're just going to run it through. Place it on top and run it through. Pick it up, put this aside, and then we get to see the results. It looks like it flattened it a bit, but we just remove it. After I remove my foil, you'll see all on our area that we have some shine. I just love the way this looks. So our foil background is good to go. I'm going to set this aside, and then we're going to do some stamping. For my card today, again, we're using the Really Great Guy stamp set. And I'd like to stamp the fishing vest along with the fishing pole. And then we're going to stamp both of the fish that are in the stamp set. I'm just going to color my images in with my alcohol marker, so we're going to need a alcohol marker friendly ink. We'll just ink it up, ink our images up, and then we'll stamp them. And they stamp beautifully. I mentioned before that I'm going to color in my images with my alcohol markers, and this is a quick look of the colors that I'm going to be using. I'm going to zoom in so you can see them. So pretty basic coloring, but while I color, I will play a little bit of music for you, and then when I'm done coloring, I will get you back. Now that our coloring is all done, we're going to go ahead and take the coordinating dies, and we will tape these down. And then while I am doing my die cutting, I'm also going to take a piece of white cardstock, and using our Uni alphabet die set, I'm going to die cut out the letters D-A-D. And I'm going to die cut out the word dad 3 times so we can stack them together to create our sentiment. I have everything die cut out now. What we're going to do is set our colored in images aside, and then we're going to work on our dad. I want to add a little bit of color behind one set of letters. So I'm just using the ink that's left over on my blending brush, and I just want to add a little bit of color, and I want to fade it up. I want to bring a little bit more orange to my letters. Now's the easy part. To create a little bit of dimension with our letters, I'm just going to use my tape runner, add a little bit of adhesive, and stack two together. And then I'll put my ink blended letter right on top. This creates a nice dimensional letter without adding foam adhesive. Okay, so our part of our sentiment is done. Now I wanted to create kind of a watery look for a background. We're going to zoom back out. To do that, I'm going to bring in, I went through all of my blue cardstock, and I had quite a bit. And I don't think we need two of those. But I just found different colors of blues. I might not use them all, but what we're going to do is take one of the hillside dies. We'll take two of them actually. There's two that we can use. These are the borders etch dies. And what we're going to do is take each one of these panels, we can tape them down with our pixie tape there, and then we'll basically cut these in half using our, and then I'm going to shift the dies so they're different kind of hills on each one of these. So I have a lot of die cutting to do. I'm going to do all that and I'll be right back. Okay, I have a whole bunch of hillsides that we're going to turn into like a watery background. On my very top piece, I do want a curved edge. So I think this one's going to work great. What I'm going to do is add a little adhesive. And this is this is not cardstock, it's printer paper. I wanted something thin because we're going to add lots of layers. So we're going to add our first layer. And then we're just going to adhere we're going to just kind of alternate each one of these colors and layers to create a look of water. Blue maybe. And I'm using the top of the cut line and the bottom of the cut line. And I think that's going to work out. I have a little bit showing here, and I didn't complete it quite all the way to the bottom, but that's okay. I'm going to use my scissors and trim off the bottom. And then I have a few extra pieces. So this would be great for a slimline card too, if you wanted to use these extra pieces. After we have this done, I'm taking a piece of white cardstock. And I want a tag for my card. So this is the Scalloped Frames die set. And the circle tag in here is going to work out perfectly for my sentiment. And then while I have this die set, there is a small rectangle die that I'm going to use to cut this out. This is going to give me a nice framed look. And you can just turn it and twist it to where you want it. And I think this is going to be fine right here. And I'll tape this down. And then we're going to run both of these through our die cut machine. After we ran this through our die cut machine, we'll remove the negative part. I have a little bit of tape on here. So I'll just remove that. And I think that creates a really neat pattern. I went ahead and put some foam adhesive behind my panel, and we're going to bring back our no heat foiled background, which I think is neat. It's a nice way to add a little bit of shine to a masculine card. I'm going to go ahead and flip this around. We're going to add adhesive behind it. I went ahead and put my foiled panel right over my card base. I do have a few areas where I put probably an excess amount of my transfer gel, but I'm not worried because we're going to add our panel right over it. I suggest maybe it dry a little bit longer Mine set out for about an hour, but depending upon a thickness, I would say, would be how long you would keep it out. Now I'm going to add my watery background. Before I stamp my sentiment, I do want to add an eyelet to my tag. Adding metal accents on masculine cards are always nice. So we have a gray colored eyelet. And then I'm going to go ahead and thread some natural twine through here. I'm going to ink up my sentiment with some black ink. And we'll stamp it on our tag. Right in the center. I think that looks wonderful. Now we can go ahead and add our dad. I'll just use a little bit of glue. Once our dad's adhered, we can go ahead and add our fishing pole. Just going to use a little bit of adhesive, and we'll directly adhere this. I'm not going to press down too well right now because I'm going to tuck the vest underneath there with a little bit of foam adhesive. I went ahead and tied a bow with my twine. I'm going to trim down the tails of it just a little bit more. After I adhered my sentiment, I did readjust the fish. Kind of spaced them out a little bit more. But that will finish off my project today using the Stay It With stamps. Really great guy stamp set. I wish you a fabulous day. Thank you so much for joining me.